You hear it all the time, right? Generative AI is changing everything. But what if I told you that for most companies, that transformation is just a myth? We're going to dive into why, because the data tells a pretty shocking story. Okay, just look at this number, 95%. A brand new report from MIT's Project Nanda just dropped, and it found that 95% of organizations are getting zero, and I mean zero, measurable return on their big enterprise GenAI investments. And we're not talking about a small amount of money here. We're talking about an estimated $40 billion poured into this tech. So the massive question is, where did it all go? In this explainer, we're going to break down the report's findings on this huge gap between the AI hype and the reality on the ground. So how in the world did we get here? Well, to really get it, we need to look inside what the report calls the GenAI Divide. Think of it as this stark split between the tiny handful of companies that are succeeding and, well, pretty much everyone else who's just stuck in neutral. The first thing that just jumps out is how uneven this whole disruption thing is. Despite all the buzz, only 2 out of 9 major industries, yep, just tech and media, are showing any real significant change. For everybody else, from finance to healthcare, it's pretty much business as usual. And this isn't just numbers on a chart, this is what leaders are actually experiencing. This quote from a manufacturing COO just nails it perfectly. The hype you see on LinkedIn, it's just not matching what's happening on the factory floor. So here's the key takeaway. This isn't an adoption problem. Companies are definitely trying. The real issue, the real bottleneck, is this massive failure to get AI tools out of the lab and into people's actual day-to-day work. The report calls it the pilot to production chasm. And this really shows you what that chasm looks like. I mean, look at this drop-off. 60% of companies looked into custom enterprise-grade AI. Okay, not bad. But that number plummets to just 20% for those who actually started a pilot. And the final number, the ones who got it into full production, a tiny, tiny 5%. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting. While all these official, expensive projects are failing, there's this shadow AI economy that is absolutely booming. Get this, only about 40% of companies have actually bought official access to powerful language models. But a staggering 90% of employees are using their own personal AI tools like ChatGPT to get their work done. So people are finding value, just not from the tools their companies are paying for. So why are employees basically going rogue and using their own tools? Well, this whole disconnect points to a really fundamental problem. It's not about the technology itself. It's about a core piece that's missing, something the report calls the AI learning gap. When the researchers asked, hey, why are these pilots failing? The number one answer was that users just didn't want to adopt the new tools. But look what's right behind it. Major concerns about the quality of the AI's output. So the same people who are happily using personal AI don't trust the quality of the systems their companies are trying to give them. And this quote from a corporate lawyer just gets right to the heart of it. Consumer tools are fine for quick, one-off things. But real enterprise work? That requires memory. It requires learning. If you don't have that, you're just starting from scratch every single time. It's exhausting. And that, right there, is the learning gap in a nutshell. It's the fact that most of these systems just can't remember, they can't adapt, and they don't get smarter the more you use them. It's really the difference between a clever calculator and a true digital colleague. The data on this is crystal clear. Sure, for simple stuff like drafting a quick email, a lot of users prefer AI. But look what happens when the work gets complex and the stakes are high. A full 90% of people still want a human on the job. The dividing line isn't about intelligence, it's all about memory. All right, so how do companies actually cross this divide and get to the other side? The good news is, that successful 5%, they've left behind a pretty clear playbook for what actually works. It turns out, big companies aren't just buying a piece of tech, they're looking for a partner. They need a vendor they can trust, who actually understands their specific workflow, who won't disrupt everything, and, this is the big one, who can offer a system that learns and gets better over time. And this leads to a really fascinating insight. The data shows that buying a customizable solution through a strategic partnership is twice as likely to succeed as trying to build one from scratch in-house. We're talking a 67% success rate for buying versus just 33% for building. That's a huge difference.
So the playbook for the best buyers is pretty clear. You've got to shift your focus from top down to bottom up. Let the frontline managers, the people who actually do the work, find solutions for real problems. And you have to change the relationship from just buying something to building a real partnership, demanding deep customization, and treating your vendors like they're on your team.
And here's where they're seeing the biggest wins. While sales and marketing get all the hype, the report found the fastest, most significant savings are often coming from the back office. Automating things like procurement and finance. We're talking millions in annual savings by cutting down on expensive agencies and BPOs.
Okay, for our last section, let's look beyond this divide for a minute. Because solving this learning gap isn't just about getting a return on today's investment. It's about unlocking a completely new way of working, a new paradigm called the Agentic Web.
So think of the Agentic Web as the next evolution. It's not just one AI tool working by itself. It's a whole network of intelligent agents that can remember context, learn from each other, and work together to automatically handle complex business processes from start to finish. And this future, it's coming up fast, so there's a real sense of urgency here. The report suggests there's about an 18-month window for big companies to pick their key partners. After that, vendor lock-in starts to happen, and the cost of switching to a new system becomes almost impossibly high.
This quote from a CIO at a major financial services firm just says it all. Once a company has spent months, maybe years, training an AI on its unique data and processes, that system becomes a deep, powerful competitive advantage. It's a moat around their business that's almost impossible for others to cross.
And that really brings us to the final question for you to think about. The GenAI divide is real, but it's not a permanent state. The path to getting across it is becoming clearer every single day. It's about choosing partnership, focusing on systems that can learn, and empowering the people closest to the work. So the real question is, which side of the divide is your organization on?